Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to why Americans are so obsessed with ice cubes. Now, through my time of learning about the US, I have learned that Americans love with a capital L, ice in their drinks. But I don't know if it's a typical thing that Americans love lots of ice in their drinks, or if it's just as a culture, when you're in a restaurant and stuff, they just happen to put more in to save money, or to put less, let's just say, Coca-Cola or whatever, Fanta in it, because the less they put in, the more ice they use, it just saves the money. But yeah, it seems that it definitely love ice cubes in the US. I mean, ice cubes in your drink in the summer, who doesn't like it? But there's also a level, you know. But I guess we're gonna see why this is the case, maybe how this became how it is. Obviously, the US has places that are extremely hot compared to just even the hottest places in Europe. Let's just say like Greece or Turkey. Like the US has places that get hotter than that and are consistently a lot warmer, so that obviously plays a huge factor. But we're going to see, hopefully going to enjoy, and let's check this out.
Upon reaching present-day America would have been water on the rocks. It seems only appropriate then that water on the rocks has also become a popular American drink. And I'm not talking about seaweed-infested water from New England. I'm talking about water served with ice. Of course, I use the example of water to service a really great pun. But honestly, Americans put ice in almost everything, from cocktails to mocktails, from coffee to tea. They even sell bags of it at the...
Oh yeah, true. Iced tea, iced coffee. I mean, cocktails, don't they always have ice? I think that's just a thing, but maybe I'm wrong.
The petrol station. And to people in my homeland of Britain, where frozen water is used far more sparingly, America's ice cube culture can at times seem like an obsession. So, is it? And why do Americans insist on bulking up their liquids with more liquids, albeit solid ones? Well, as a British person myself who moved to the United States, such questions have been at the forefront of my mind this summer, not least because my wife and I recently got an ice making machine.
Oh, they got an ice maker. That is mad. I've never seen an ice maker in my life.
Not least because...
Does it do it quick? Like, how does it really work? That's so fascinating. I've never even seen anything close to this, even in shops and stuff. I wonder how quickly it does it as well.
My wife and I recently got an ice making machine. Shut up, it's great. And if you would like this machine of a YouTube channel to reach 1 million subscribers and you haven't yet become one yourself, do that now. In the meantime, here are some of the actual reasons that Americans love their ice, some of which might surprise you. And before I skate on thin ice with my British subscribers, I want to start this deep dive by addressing a popular misconception among Americans, that European countries don't themselves have ice cubes. This, of course, is completely and utterly a little bit false. In Britain, for example, not only do many households have trays for creating them, but Brits, albeit to a lesser extent than Americans, do consume iced tea and the like. But definitely not as much as as hot tea. The reason for this misconception appears to be that ice water is not typically served in UK restaurants unless one specifically asks for it, and even then you only get about 1 or 2 ice cubes. In the US, most restaurants will serve it by default, with waitstaff frequently ensuring that your glass remains topped up. In other words, it's not that Britain eschews ice cubing altogether, it's just that Americans take it to another level. Speaking of levels, I'd really like to thank today's sponsor.
Secure in the bag, extra. Go on, lad. 25% discount, that's what I'm talking about.
Lost will unlock further discounts. The details are in my description below. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Lawrence, this video should have been over in 20 seconds. The answer is simple. Americans just like to be different. And while that seems to be the default perception toward most things America, I've read enough to know that this belief doesn't always hold water. Pun intended. In other words, ice cube fanaticism, much like American vocabulary, is not so much a product of American hysteria, but American history. You see, America's ice fixation in this, the era of refrigeration, owes much to the century that preceded it. In 1800, when the US was still young enough to be covered under its parents' healthcare plan, one American in particular came up with a revolutionary idea: ice harvesting. This was where icemen would cut huge blocks of ice from lakes and rivers for the express purpose of using them for refrigeration.
Oh wow.
They were sort of like ice...
I mean, obviously they didn't have any way to make ice then. I mean, that's how it was done. You can't really blame them. That's just so fascinating to see. That's where I guess the culture, or that sort of aspect of the culture in terms of the obsession with ice cubes came from.
Cubes, but for giants. In fact, the blocks weighed up to 300 pounds, which is roughly equal to 3 large dogs, or The Undertaker. Because this was during a time when icemen didn't have a direct line to Charles Xavier, they had to enlist horses to transport the ice, which would then be stored in special ice houses from where it could be exported. And why am I telling you this in 2024? Because for the next century and a half, ice harvesting became a massive industry in the United States. It was the brainchild of Bostonian businessman Frederick Tudor, who would later be dubbed the Ice King, despite Boston only recently saying it didn't want a monarch. Tudor made an absolute fortune selling to other countries ice harvested in New England, further adding substance to my water on the rocks joke from earlier. In fact, by the 1880s, ice was America's second largest export after cotton. Among the beneficiaries were Cuba, India, England, and most notably Norway, which subsequently began its own ice harvesting industry.
Wait, it was that big? Damn. I mean, how would they have kept it frozen when they're transporting it? Because surely the things that they could keep it in wouldn't keep it the same. But maybe they had methods that I just don't really know.
And of course, ice harvesting gradually benefited American society.
Indeed, it was known as ice harvesting because ice was literally considered a crop. At first, this crop would be distributed to the wealthy, who would use it to preserve meat and beverages, something that was of particular importance during those hot summer months.
But as the century wore on, ice was made available to businesses up and down the country.
It revolutionized various food markets because it meant that meat, fish, and vegetables could be more easily stored and transported without rotting. Moreover, by the 1860s, when Tudor was busy seeking revenge against his barber, 2/3 of homes in Boston and New York received ice deliveries on the daily.
America presumably had so much ice that the only natural next step was to start putting it in drinks.
Don't believe me? Well, American author Mark Twain, who was obsessed with technological invention, not only himself confirmed it, but cited it as a uniquely American practice.
I think that there is only one thing that can be called by the wide name American, that is the national devotion to ice water. That sounded exactly like him.
Like Twain, ice harvesting continued on into the 20th century, along with ice cubes.
Indeed, it was during the Great Depression that America gave us the first flexible ice tray.
Today, of course, these are normally made of plastic, but back then, metal trays were all the rage.
Around the same time, General Electric rolled out the so-called monitor top refrigerator, the world's first mass-produced residential fridge.
So what, with this, was this where the ice was kept and it would keep all of this cold?
And the rise of the personal refrigerator soon led to the mass production of its cousin, the freezer.
By 1948, around 90% of American homes were equipped with a fridge. Compare this to Britain, still reeling from the economic effects of World War II, where only 2% of homes could say the same.
And the refrigeration boom ultimately meant two things.
Number one, America's love of ice cubes had now reached a level of convenience that would have made Mark Twain do this with his face. And number two, by the middle of the 20th century, the ice harvesting industry, which had then existed for 85% of US history, died out overnight. In doing so, it left behind a legacy still felt by the global food industry today. But it also played a central role in establishing America's warm relationship with ice.
Yeah, I guess they had to find a new solution for where the ice would be used next.
Okay, history's schmistery, you might be thinking, but why are Americans still doing this in 2024? Can't they just cool it? Well, that's exactly what they are doing.
You see, just as British winters don't deliver nearly as much ice as those of the northern United States, British summers are not nearly as hot. So, back when I heroically traversed the Rockies in 99-degree heat, anything less than ice water would have been an insult.
And when I say I traversed the Rockies, I meant that I walked up a hill in Utah. The point is, the cult of Ice Cube has persisted in America partially because its devotees derive practical use from it.
Of course, as heat waves become more common in the UK, might the same thing happen there? After all, the UK did eventually get on board with refrigerators, with that 2% figure rising to 97% in the years since.
To me, this seems unlikely. Not only is that like comparing apples and oranges, but UK fridges and freezers are typically much smaller than those in America. In other words, not every British family has the real estate to prioritise ice cubes, especially when Feast ice creams exist.
Oh, they're good. Oh, he's reminding me of my favourite ice cream. The mint flavour as well.
British family has the real estate to prioritise ice cubes, especially when feast ice creams exist.
In America, not only do larger units mean more space for ice trays, but some models even have an ice cube dispenser, as I found at my previous address. And some of my more observant subscribers might be thinking, wait a minute, what happened to the big fridge that came with your house?
We're not 5 people, it had to go. Which is why we got a smaller fridge and an ice making machine. However, all of this talk of four-sided objects got me thinking. Perhaps the ultimate reason that Americans love ice cubes is that Americans also have a broader love of rectangles.
Under a flag that boasts more rectangles than, say, 99% of all of the countries in the world, in a country of rectangular counties, some of which form rectangular panhandles or knitted quilts, or the utilization of land in America as illustrated by Forbes. In cities of rectangular neighborhoods in which rectangles live side by side in total harmony, there are rectangular lawns containing circular fire pits for safety reasons, but in the rectangular houses, there are rectangular kitchens with their rectangular freezers, with rectangular trays, with smaller rectangular trays that make rectangular ice.
And if you haven't seen my video...
Fuck. Well, there you go. That's quite interesting seeing like the history of how like ice, I guess its use has changed over time, but how they used to like they used to farm it and stuff. That was wild, and export it. Second biggest exporter that the US had. That is wild. But there you go. Because here 80 Fahrenheit is more like an overnight low, not a heat wave. The real question is, why are Europeans so stingy with ice? After all, it's just water, but some of them act like it's made of gold. Nah, but too much ice makes it too cold. Like, I can't lie, when I have a drink, like, when I'm craving like a cold drink, sometimes I'll put a lot of ice in, and it will literally just, my teeth will just like feel so sensitive when drinking it, I can't really drink it. There's definitely a level to how much ice you want for me, but maybe I'm not really someone to relate to this because I live in a pretty cold country, or a mild country. What a strange question. Sincerely, an American southerner. There you go. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.